Well, here we are. Josh, next page. I can see it. We tried to get it to me to present. Thanks all for joining. It seemed like there's a lot on the agenda, but there's really not. We're kind of in this holding pattern with the survey, but there's some work to be done. So I thought what we do is just review the one slide to just get us motivated why we're doing this. Talk about all the things that we've done in the past month. We made a lot of progress in the past month, like we have in previous months. Talk about the survey and maybe even just give you a quick demo so you could see what Josh and I could see when the results come in. It was just a test results. It wasn't really anything else. Big discussion around timing a survey. The headline is we had 8 people vote on the committee, and it was 4 to field in September and 4 to wait until after the decision is made. So that's where we stand, but we'll have some discussion around that. Want to review what we talked about, communication distribution of the survey. Time permitting, we might get into a mission statement. I put a couple slides together on that. And then we definitely want to get to next steps, work to be completed, and then just have any open discussion. But as always, just jump in if you have anything. So sorry, Josh, next slide. So this was a slide that I shared at the board meeting on the 21st. And, there's probably 20 other reasons to develop a strategic plan, but this kind of struck me from this professional growth system as, what does it help do? And, just think of it as a business or think of it as Ocean Pines. It aligns the board and management. Once it does that, it aligns the management with all the departments. It provides clear direction on what the priorities are, what the priorities are and what they're not. And then also, to Helen's credit, complete agreement on core beliefs and principles. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on, and God bless the board of directors, but this will hopefully, help to really get alignment on what the priorities are for the community. So I just thought I'd share that. So next slide is just talk about what we did this, and unfortunately I made it a building slide. Josh, you can just go through them. No, it isn't. So it was a busy month. At least I felt it was a busy month for us. We had the board of director update on the 21st. We had our meeting last month, and then we thanks to Colette and John and Josh, we jumped on, bought SurveyMonkey. We developed a survey, and I was on round 5 when I stopped counting. Josh did a nice job going back and forth, correcting some things before any of you saw it. And then finally, I thought it was ready for survey feedback. And it's interesting, I could go on my laptop on SurveyMonkey, and it gives you, of course, your laptop view, a iPad view, and a phone view. But it's interesting when you actually get to the phones, it actually looks different. So even though I was testing it myself on 3 different devices, but it was all on my laptop. So we'll get into what that feedback was in a second and where we go from there. And then survey communications. We had a sub-team meet and developed an outline of the communications plan and collection plan for where we're going to distribute hard copies. So busy month, and I think there is one build at the bottom there, if you hit the button. Just want to say thank you. You guys are really responsive, which is awesome. I was trying to get these votes in, for an example, before the meeting, or trying to give a little bit more time, and you guys are, I really appreciate that. It keeps us going, keeps us moving forward. So I just can't thank you enough. It's been a great team effort, and everybody has different strengths and different perspectives, which is great. And that's why we're a good team, at least those of us that participate. Anyway, next slide. So survey testing feedback, and rather than just go ahead and load it all. So in general, we had actually, I've had several community members email me. I've had past board members email me. It was like 5 to 10, 15 people in addition to all of you and any friends that you did. But overall, they didn't test the survey. I didn't put it out there other than to this committee and our friends. But in the survey development, people would raise a question. I'm like, yeah, we have that in there or whatever. But I think in general, the feedback was positive, and it took a little bit longer than I thought it would, but about 13 and a half minutes, at least that's what SurveyMonkey says. Those that completed online, the average was 13 and a half minutes. Now, we're familiar with the content, and maybe we're also making notes about what feedback to give. I've had other people say it took 9 minutes, 10 minutes, but the average was 13 and a half. A lot of individual inputs, but there's also several that were more than one or two inputs. The font was light, particularly on the cell phone and iPad. I'm completely colorblind, and I don't see bold well, so that was very helpful to me. I couldn't tell. I mean, sometimes I'll look at it and say, looks light to me, but that's just my eyes. So definitely have to fix that issue. Definitely some formatting issues, like the question 3, the stars, that's an easy fix where they weren't showing up. Question 4 and 5, headings did not show on some devices, so we got to fix that. Definitely some input on adding neutral or not applicable or something in there, particularly on a couple of different questions. If somebody didn't have any experience or have an opinion about a certain thing, they should have that option to say no opinion. And then the last one, that Nps score, there was some discussion about, we agreed to only do, ratings on 1 through 5. Every question is 1 through 5 except the Nps score. The Nps score is a 1 to 100 score. It has to be like that from what I know. So it's the one score that is, I'm typically doing 1 to 10. And it's interesting when you get into SurveyMonkey, they had that sliding bar and it's 1 to 100, and it will give that overall score. So that's the one exception to the 1 to 5 ratings, and hopefully the slide bar makes it easy, but I need to correct the wording on that. And then eliminate some questions and answers. This is mixed about the Worcester County Sports Complex. I think Colette had raised it. Somebody sent a note to the board. I think some of the committee members want it in there. Other committee members said, what can we do about it? I'm not sure what to do about that, because there's other issues. We could add 5 other issues that the county's considering. It's really just a possibility at that point. I'm inclined to take it out, but perhaps include something around traffic on 589. Or, is this something, I'm not sure what I'm going to do there yet. I think there's opportunities to take a few more things out as well to make it simpler and less time to complete.
So what are you thinking about with respect to traffic on 589?
There was, in the SWOT analysis that were done, it was raised an issue, just concern about the level of traffic on 589. And it might just be like a statement, how strongly do you agree about 589 is becoming a traffic issue? But
and so what could we do about that?
I think that where I was thinking on this, you could, and that's the question we need to ask. What can we do about that? How does it affect our planning? How does it affect our priorities? On the one hand, you could say the board can take a big stance, get involved politically, and fight the county that they don't want it there.
Okay, let me tell you what we've done.
Yeah.
There was a big hullabaloo about a potential roundabout at the North Gate. We met with the State Highway Administration. That's a state road, that's not a county road.
Yeah.
And we met with the developers of the medical complex, Gilson Glickerson, and the president of that organization. Of course, the health complex wants us to do some things to make their lives easier, one of which is to give over land within Ocean Pines to create an egress from their facility, which is not popular among the residents of Ocean Pines. And there also was a lot of pressure for us to push back on the roundabout because a lot of residents had concerns about safety. So we all met, and the State Highway Administration essentially said, what we do is going to be driven by the data that we gather about safety and traffic patterns. You guys can do whatever you want to do, but we're going to do what we're going to do, and that's going to be up to us. It's not going to be up to you.
Yeah,
So that's kind of where we are, and I doubt that that will change.
yeah. So does the board, where do they stand on the sports complex?
The board has not taken a stand on that.
Should they?
I don't know that we have the ability to influence that.
Okay.
But I'll certainly bring it up with my colleagues.
Yeah, I mean, so I want to discuss this, but where my head is, if there's disagreement whether to include something or not, to make this survey simpler, because there's enough in there already, my thinking is eliminate it. There's another one that we'll talk about at health and wellness, which we spent a lot of time at the last meeting talking about how should we state that. And it came back again, it's still confusing. What does that mean? And so as I think of the survey and know that was 13 and a half minutes, I'm almost leaning towards wherever we can eliminate something that we know that's not going to have an important impact or whatever. And the other thing I would say is with SurveyMonkey, Josh can always put a question out,
Right.
online and just get hundreds of responses, if not 1,000 responses to any specific question anybody wants. So,
and I think with these questions that, about things that go beyond the power of Ocean Pines to have direct influence, the more focused survey may be more powerful, because we may be able to exert influence as a community by having responses in numbers. With respect to, what Ocean Pines wants for itself, or concerns about the impact of things like the sports complex, or the, any changes to the North Gate at 589 at the North Gate.
This was an add-on to it. This was something that wasn't in the survey from our last meeting. It was something that we added in right before testing. So, Gary, you were going to say something, I'm sorry.
I was just following up on what Colette said. If I understood it, you're saying that the board doesn't have the influence to take to the county about the sports complex. If I understood.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not sure what influence we would have. I know that our commissioners Bunting and Bertino have raised concerns about that facility. And, at this point, they're still gathering information.
Right.
It seems as though they're the two of 7 commissioners, or there are 7, who are raising some objections.
My point was just going to be that regardless of how much of an influence the board would have, just the fact that they say, hey, the majority of people in Ocean Pines are against this because of traffic issues or whatever, I've got to think that's going to have some influence on how they look at things.
Right, and that's why I've said a survey that targets that specific question would give the county and the board numbers to work from. We can't just go to the county today and say the majority of Ocean Pines think X or Y, because we don't have that data.
Right.
So getting that data in a focused way, I think, would be appropriate. I'm not, it's your survey. You put in the survey what you think as a committee is the right thing to put in there. But I think this is a very specific, time urgent, not urgent, but it's a current concern because it's a topic that's in the news. The idea of the roundabout has not gone away, but it's not currently being discussed. And so that's kind of dropped off the radar, but the concern is still there. Do we have numbers about Ocean Pines residents' attitude about that? No, not at this point. And I think when it becomes a topic again of discussion, maybe the county begins, or the state begins to make plans to move on that, then I would say, Ocean Pines as a community should be weighing in.
Well, then maybe the question should be, if you keep the question in the survey, it should be more along the lines of, are you concerned that the proposed sports complex may cause additional traffic issues? And what level of concern do you have about that? And
That's kind of a leading question.
Yeah,
Well,
we changed the wording.
yeah, but that's kind of the idea, just to get the idea out there that people are concerned about traffic from that.
Yeah, and then the flip side of that may be that people, particularly short-term rental landlords, may think it's a great idea because it'll bring more people into Ocean Pines and bring revenue. So there are
Can
two
I
sides to that
say
question.
Yeah, I was gonna, Jenny, I knew you had a point of view on that. I was gonna, those on the phone or at home or in their business. Yeah, Jenny, go ahead.
Well, so I was just thinking, listening to all of this, it seems to me, combining all of the thoughts, it might make sense to do a specific 1 or 2 question survey that has to do with the sports complex, the roundabout, and keep it separate. We're trying to do a strategic plan. I'm not sure that it just seems to me we could separate this and simplify it and give specific focus data to the board and not necessarily get people all worked up about things that Ocean Pines can't necessarily control with a strategic plan.
Jenny, just to build on that, I'm torn. This came up and I'm like, okay, we'll throw it in there. But at the same time, I think it's like one of 4 or 5 locations. So it's really just a possibility at this point. It's not like, but maybe it goes from possibility to a plan pretty quickly. I don't know.
I thought it was a good question when I was going through the survey, but as I'm hearing the conversation, I'm thinking, okay, so actually we're asking an opinion, and I'm not sure this is the place to do that specific thing, particularly given Colette's point of specific data, focus data.
Yeah. Yeah.
My 2 cents.
Becky?
Yeah,
Anything?
I'm in favor of leaving the question for the following reason. I believe that it generates the data that Ocean Pines needs to go forth with a more specific survey surrounding the situation. So far, what's been offered in discussion from the readings that I've done, and I actually wanted to get in touch with Chip Bertino, that what is out there and in the media and what's being talked about are proposals. So we really don't have hard facts as to what's going on. But an interesting way to propose the question would be, are you in favor of, or what is your favorability on a scale of 1 to 10 regarding a sports complex development in that area? So then with the answer that we generate from that, if 70% of our residents are not in favor, we go forward and we develop a more specific survey, and the state sees that trail of data. They see that there was an interest that, had some concern, and then you go forth and you get more, and you certainly can roll it in with other challenges that present to us. And I do think it's Ocean Pines' role and place to be involved in community projects at that level, and the board of directors has the opportunity to offer opinion regarding the safety of the community and specifically the traffic control or however that impacts us as a community. I was just in the vicinity of 589 yesterday. There was another accident at Capitol Road, and there was an accident the day before that required our responders to respond. So we're responding to those. We are using our community money and the county's money to respond to those emergency events that are happening along 589. And that does affect us because we're using our personnel to support those situations. So it affects us through a spider web, of issues. So I'm in favor of keeping it.
Let's take a, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a comment.
Yeah.
Whether or not we decide to keep the Worcester County complex
Yeah.
or not, I at first said I was not in favor of keeping the question. But I think the bigger issue also is just overall traffic
Yeah,
in Ocean Pines. And I'm talking about the entrances, at the entrances to North Gate, Cathell, and South Gate. We all know there's been discussion about that. So if we could somehow blend, I think
Yeah.
traffic control and just like what Becky said with our responding.
well,
Yeah, just to follow up on a comment that Becky made about the facts that we lack with respect to the Worcester County Sports Complex. My understanding is that Commissioners Bertino and Bunting are at the stage of trying to get facts. There was a lot of discussion about this without facts being shared among all of the commissioners. And, there is a place for us to go to receive that information, and that is the county commissioner meetings where these discussions are taking place. And, I would just caution that if we're going to put a question on our survey that is not based on facts that are out there available to our commissioners and the community at large, I would have concerns about, what the fallout from that would be. We have an awful lot of people in this community who are trying to engage in activities without facts to back it up. And I
think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's a really good point. I understand that Barentino is coming for a town hall meeting on the 24th of September to Ocean Pines. Did everybody read that? I think it's the first.
I didn't remember it being in Ocean Pines, but
It'll be at the library.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first one in, apparently the first open meeting in a really long time. Unfortunately, I'm going to be out of town, but I think that's going to be a very interesting meeting, and maybe depending on the timing of when we release this survey, we'll have the answer to that very good point that was just raised about facts. Actually, what are they proposing? So we could defer taking it out until we hear more information. And we can take it out at the very last minute because we're not releasing the survey at the moment. But I think the fact issue is certainly valid to give us pause to think about what are we asking based on rumor, or are we asking based on fact?
Well, I'm inclined to put something in just about traffic. And the reason is it was raised as one of the issues when we did some SWOT analysis.
Right.
That it had 2 or 3 votes on the executive council. I think it was just general traffic on 589 and the entrances. So I'm inclined to put something in, very not leading question about concern about traffic.
Well,
And that isn't anything to do with the sports complex, but if majority residents are concerned about traffic, that's sort of an
I
impact.
don't know if you heard what Hogan said the other day. In fact, they're going to do a study now on 90 as regarding expanding 90 to a 4-lane highway. But then I heard something yesterday that came, I guess, from the Worcester County Commissioners or something, that they were also trying to wrap 589 into that. But then the other part of that is also, I heard recently, and I don't know anything about this, that one area on the west side of 589, sort of like across the street from the, I don't know what you call that one place, the marina and all that, sells all the boats and everything else and repair cars. That has been sold, and they're asking everyone to clear their boats out because there's going to be a development built there of several hundred houses. Now, I've heard nothing about that or read anything about that, but that also will impact the traffic on 589. It'd be the same kind of situation you run into in Delaware. But the other part of it is, by the time, and it's later on in our discussion, by the time this gets out to the general population of Ocean Pines, because of the delay, this question may already been answered. You know, the commissioners may say, oh, we've already decided on a location, the property's been sold, whatever. Because my feeling is, I think the board of directors needs to step up and really have a little stronger hand in things. Not constantly worry about, you know, what everybody's thinking and all this, but really take a firm stand on the fact, yes, we already know it's a problem. Take a stand. Do people want it or not?
What you just said sort of supports what I was saying. Let's get a temperature check on traffic. I'm concerned about traffic, which would then lead the board to maybe go in that direction, you know, and we'd make sure we word it that it wasn't leading or anything like that.
Right. But by the time they get it,
Yeah,
they may have already made a decision.
yeah.
I mean, I'm going in two different directions here, but I think the board needs to take a more firmer stand on things, or at least get involved a lot with the commissioners, and really pressure them. Because in terms of population, this is one of the most populous areas in Worcester County in terms of voting. Am I right?
Yeah.
Right. So therefore, they need to listen to you. Now, you may not, I mean, it's like any other, I mean, if you go into any other community somewhere or county, you know, they don't take a poll of everybody who lives in Delaney Valley regarding whatever. Okay, the county commissioner and all, they make a decision, and that's how it sticks. You don't constantly ask for opinions.
And I think that, and there is a question in there about the board sort of working more with the county and other communities and things like that. That question's in there already, and I don't disagree with you, Mo. But going back to this question, anybody opposed to me putting something in regarding traffic on 589 and leaving the sports complex out?
No, just it's a general kind of
So
question.
we'll do that. If we want to come back separately and ask more specific questions once they have a location, you can do that and get responses back immediately. So, and we could do that. So I think those on the phone, you okay with that? We'll probably put something related to traffic, which is consistent with everything that's in there now, or majority was based on the SWOT analysis that were done, and that was raised as an issue. So you guys okay with that?
Yes.
Good. How about healthy lifestyle or health?
Health and illness.
Next slide.
don't want to help you.
Next slide, Josh.
Now we want to have high cholesterol and
And it was in, we, you know, I didn't touch it yet. And next one, go ahead, hit it again. That was the other one. Go ahead, Josh, I'm sorry. Health and wellness still needs clarity and or delete.
What was the original thought on what health and wellness was supposed to mean?
We were, there was some about proximity to, you know, healthy, you know, the doctors and hospitals and things like that. There was another aspect of promoting a healthy lifestyle. You know, there's a lot of communities, and I did the villages. It's like active, healthy lifestyle is what they're all about. You know, and so it tied back to, is Ocean Pines, in my mind, doing enough on promoting or promoting a healthy lifestyle, I guess is the way I would say.
there were also certain communities when we did that survey that actually have alignment with medical facilities within their area.
Yeah.
And that also is a positive point. Because what has happened down here a number of times, at least I know from my background, is the fact that you have more residents here who need care, and there is a lack of providers in many cases. Sometimes your appointments have to be 2-3 months out. And that's why a lot of people cross the bridge to go back, even all the way up to Baltimore, because of the fact they can get an appointment sooner. Or if you try to align with a particular primary care provider, you may find, I'm sorry, I'm not taking any more patients. I'm all filled. And it's because of that, do you try to align in some fashion with one of the large medical facilities in the area? Do you align with BB? Do you align with Tidal Health or whoever? Because more and more Tidal Health is now buying up practices. Like all of Peninsula Cardiology and Delmarva Heart and all that has now been combined into Tidal completely.
Gary, you have also a heavy influence on this committee of people that worked in the health field. No, but I mean, I was there with the healthy lifestyle. Are we doing enough to promote it?
And And quite honestly, I do a lot of fundraising for Atlantic General Hospital, so I'm all for it. It's just, I think the way the question was on the survey, it didn't give enough explanation
Yeah.
as to what we were really looking for.
Yeah.
And I think that's more, now that I understand the background, the idea I think is good. It's just, it wasn't understandable.
Yeah, I agree. I do completely agree with what Mo said. You know, it'd be great if we could do that as a community, perhaps align with medical center or whatever. But I think health and wellness, you know, when I'm looking at other communities and how does a community support health and wellness? And I've found where they say, well, they offer classes, they have walking, they have biking, they have volunteer opportunities, you know, they usually look at all that and not.
Yeah, it's almost two different issues, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, again, I shouldn't even be speaking, but I hear what Gary's saying, that clarity on what you mean is going to help, because those are two very different issues. And how people, you know, people may have thoughts, and I'm assuming you and Mo have thoughts on how both of those, how the community may go about promoting both of those types of initiatives.
Anybody on the phone? This is
Well, I was
just
actually
thought in my
more
head
along-
what to do about this. Go ahead. Jenny?
I was interpreting it more in the way that Helen said, mainly because of looking at the strategic plans, and when we were doing the sampling of other communities, my interpretation of that question was based on what we were pulling from other plans.
Yep.
So I was thinking more in terms of, are we offering opportunity to promote or to have a healthy lifestyle here? So I guess clarity is important.
And I guess how will the survey taker perceive that
Exactly.
question?
I think they're going to perceive it in a more literal way. Like, do we have walking trails? Do we have a fitness room, or you know what I mean? I think anyway, I could be wrong, but
Yeah, this is my dilemma on this one, and that's, I mean, those two issues, the sports complex and this one were ones that I don't have a decision on, or, you know, one option is to put both in alignment with, you know, medical facility, and the other one is promotes a healthy lifestyle, and see what type of agreement we get on that. There are questions in there about walking trails and things like that, so.
So I may be able to
I'm
offer
gonna
some.
make a decision. No.
I would
Sure.
vote to take it out. I think that it's not specific enough. And I will offer the fact that there is a framework for community living that is built around a health and wellness philosophy. It's part of public health development across the country. I can access that framework for us so that we can look at it. But in the framework, there are several objectives that are met to promote a community of health and wellness. One of the objectives is access to healthcare. So we've talked about that today and what you can do to foster access to healthcare. Another way to promote community health and wellness is to provide activities that promote preventative health. We have several ideas that we do here already in Ocean Pines that promote preventative health. Another way to promote a community of a healthy lifestyle is to provide activity, have several areas of activity. So health and wellness is more of a global idea, concept, and to really put it on a survey, it's just not specific enough to get an answer that everybody's going to be on the same page with what they're thinking. So I at this point, I would take it out unless you're going to ask a targeted question.
If I just want to follow up on your comments. It sounds like that health and wellness is a concern in Ocean Pines. I guess, maybe this survey is going to give us data on that. But how would you suggest an HOA go about moving into the arena of public health initiatives related to health and wellness?
That's a good question. And the first place that I think that we need to start is that when we start conceptualizing this mission statement, that should be part of that mission statement. And that Ocean Pines is a community of health and wellness that supports yada, yada, yada.
Okay.
So the mission statement should be the number one place for it to start. And then as we again drop down to vision and we drop down to objectives, then the framework should guide, not what we think, but a framework, an evidence-based framework should really guide what we're doing to support those activities that ultimately get us to that place of health and wellness.
And so to support including that language in a revision of our mission and vision statements, you probably do need to get some
Exactly.
data.
Yeah.
So
that's
however
where-
you do that.
Yeah, I mean, if people are, how strongly do they feel about it? So
Yeah.
let me, I think what I'll do is I'll tell you I'm gonna take it out, but then at the last minute, I'm gonna put it in. And, no, just kidding. I may, like I said, when in doubt, I might take it out, to make it simpler.
But
On the
again,
other
we're gonna
hand,
change the mission and vision
yeah,
statement.
and that's why I
It needs
wanted to
some
cover
data.
mission and vision today, because you'll see that if we get to it, that there might be some things that we want to include
Right.
because it can impact that, and we want rationale why we changed it, et cetera. One of the biggest ones is on the vision, we talk about being a resort community. And I made a statement at the board meeting that somebody responded, it's like, we are a resort community. I'm like, well, I guess we are, but is that what we want to be? I think we transitioned from a lot of part-time people to more and more full-time people. So it was
And
another
people who are
example
raising their
of,
families here may not see it that way.
yeah, it made me think about maybe it's a resort style community,
That's it. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah. So we're going to have so the next steps on this is based on all your input, based on the things that we talked about with formatting and that, unfortunately, we are going to do another round of testing. Josh, if you want to, I'm looking at my screen, so just go down.
If I could make one more comment. If the question was more along the lines of, do you feel that your access to community medical care or health care is sufficient?
Right. Yeah.
Word it something like that so that you're still getting the input from people who say, well, yeah, my doctor's right around the corner, so I feel good, or I don't feel good because it takes me 3 months to get an appointment with them. So just asking about what is your opinion about access to local health care?
Like that.
Yeah, and I'm still thinking about, how that the response to that. I think we all know that there are going to be varying responses, but the response of this committee in terms of writing a strategic plan, what tools would they see Ocean Pines as having at their disposal to address the issue of access to medical care when there is a dearth of providers?
Yeah.
And so, I hear what Mo is saying about the board needing to partner more perhaps with the major health facilities in this area and partnering with our county commissioners and so forth. And, maybe in this strategic plan, there will be some language to that extent, but realize that everything that the board does is by motion. We don't take any actions unless it is a motion passes directing that action. And that involves a vote of a majority of directors. And so it may be in a strategic plan that we do that, but if we don't have a majority of directors that support those actions are not going to happen. And so just, I don't, this is not like a, this, it is a board-run community. It's not a typical community. And how the board operates is stipulated by our governing documents. And so just bear that in mind. I'm not saying don't do this or don't put something in or take something out. I'm just saying that we have to be cognizant of how business gets done in a community that's governed by a board.
Well, and the other thing, just keep in mind, is right now we've got Tidal Health with their whole new complex that they put in and are expanding.
Right.
And at the other end of 589, AGH is getting ready to break ground on a very similar
Right.
project. So we've got plenty of health facilities nearby. So I'm not sure what the board's going to be able to do with whatever the numbers come out from the survey. We've already got both Tidal Health and AGH almost fighting over the population in Ocean Pines with their two projects that are going in. So I'm kind of backtracking on whether this is a good question or not, but what is the board going to do more than what the two healthcare facilities are already doing?
What your problem is not in terms of facilities. Your problem is in terms of providers.
Right.
Okay. Now, granted, the board can do nothing in terms of recruiting providers. However, in certain situations, there are ways whereby residents of a certain HOA or community, whatever, could have priority with the limited number of providers you have here. And that becomes a very positive point. Because some
So fostering
communities.
relationships is what you're promoting.
Exactly. Thank you. And once you have that, then therefore people become much more comfortable. But you can build as many facilities as you want, but if you don't have the providers, and then you're out of luck. And if you really look at it, a number of providers who are down here only come down here 1 or 2 days a week, even with Tidal, and even with AGH. Okay, most of your dermatology practices are all out of Anne Arundel County. Okay, and I know there's a number of docs come out of Mercy and Baltimore to come down to Tidal because they're a specialty. So it's if you build some kind of relationship there, you may have some inward way that way your residents may have more of an advantage.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that was very well said. And I believe that when you look at access to healthcare, you're looking at multiple issues, and that includes facilities as well as providers. And let's face it, we have a provider shortage. We have a provider shortage across the nation. Ocean Pines is not isolated in that fact, but it's magnified here because we are rural compared to an urban area. The facilities that are being generated right now are making money for hospitals because they are providing access to imaging services and diagnostic care, so that is a convenience for our residents because we don't have to travel as far. But they're also generating dollars off those facilities, and that's why there's a little bit of competition going on there, I think. So it's the role of the board of the Homeowners Association of Ocean Pines to create the partnerships and invite the providers or make their residents aware of what is available to them, so that then the residents can go out and seek their choice of care. We can do that through partnership. We can do it through health fairs. We can do it through come blood pressure days. I mean, we've already done that here.
Yeah, we do have a health fair, and they do, the all of that in terms of displaying their access to services, et cetera, and doing the carotid artery thing. And
Yes. And of course, that's really been impacted, it's really been impacted by COVID in terms of how people are getting informed about their health care right now. And many people have put off their preventive care because of COVID, and we're still involved in this situation. So this health and wellness bullet on the survey either needs to be teased out into its own questions, specific questions, to make it more to help us get the data that we really want.
Yeah,
Then
and I
maybe
think,
to Bernie's point at the beginning is if you're just going to ask about traffic, just ask about access to healthcare. And at some point it becomes a different survey.
Yeah, I mean, you could ask the question a different way. I looked at it in a very simple-minded way when I went through the survey. Is health and wellness important to you? And again, you're talking about a survey about Ocean Pines, so is it important to you relative to Ocean Pines? And I would have checked yes. And how well are we doing? I would have checked more toward the top. I mean, frankly, one of the things that we looked at, my wife and I, when we decided to buy an Ocean Pines, we're at that age where you go to the doctor a lot more, and you need more care, and there is good care, and so I viewed that as a positive. So in looking at the question, I took it sort of simple-mindedly, and then, hey, well, what information will that provide to us? If it's very important to most people, it tells the board that's something either, not only to be vigilant of in terms of what opportunities do we have as a board to do something, but also in promoting the community. As we promote the community, that's an important characteristic to people. So you promote it, but maybe you need to tease it out better and say, yeah, and call it like access to healthcare, as opposed to just saying health and wellness.
Yeah, Wes, hey, welcome and thank you for joining. Where
Sorry, I
my
was
head's
on a
at,
call that ran long.
no problem. Where my head's at right now, and again, other than when in doubt, take it out. And this survey is going to accomplish a lot of things. So we're nitpicking here, which is great. But I'm almost, because it was raised and because we looked at other communities, it might be just two separate bullet points. Access to quality healthcare. How do you feel about that? And then secondly, promotes a healthy lifestyle. Do you agree or disagree? And it's two different aspects of it, and it might help us down the road. That's just where my head is now, but go ahead, build out the rest of this chart, Josh, if you don't mind. We're going to test this again. There's going to be another round of feedback. So we're going to make the changes based on all this input, and you're going to have another chance to go back and agree or disagree. I'm concerned about functionality based on the feedback, and I'm concerned, in just one final check on the content. And ideally, when you look at this, and I think Colette, thank you, is looking at things and just thinking through, well, what will we do with this information? Oh, it can impact our mission statement, or is there anything we could do about this? And there's different aspects of it, of how strong we could do something. Like, I threw out the bus shuttle to the beaches. Is Ocean Pines going to provide a bus? I mean, and that was something that 2 or 3 other communities do that are by the shore. Is Ocean Pines going to do anything? No, but maybe they could contract somebody out that does that. So they could solve that issue. I doubt if it'll be a big opportunity, but I mean, that's just an example that you can always look at. But the eyes will be, what can we eliminate ideally on this? We don't want to add more. I keep on getting things, add this, and if anything, we want to cut back. So I'm going to skip over the quick demo of our results. I'll send out a screenshot. Basically, it's just pretty cool because as results come in, it creates pie charts, it creates, charts, and you have the data right there. It's pretty cool. But I'll send out a couple screenshots just to show what that looks like. It's really, it's great. You can look at the hard data, but you can also look at the charts pretty quickly. So I'll send out a few screenshots. I was surprised the Net Promoter Score from this committee was a little bit lower than I expected, but I don't know what the basis is for a homeowners community, but I think that provides a nice benchmark. A Net Promoter Score is basically how likely would you recommend Ocean Pines to a friend or colleague. And it's what companies always ask. It's, you know, if Rob was here, he's like, hey, when he was in business, that was the number one thing that they focused on. Because it is, like, you know, if you really love Relief or love the car that you drive, you're gonna recommend it to somebody else. Let's skip over the demo. I'll send us a couple screenshots and go to another good topic here. So we had agreed to, and just build this out, we had agreed to delay the survey until after the election, based on the straw poll. And I had to call a few people to get the votes in. Somebody in this committee voted two things. But anyway, it was tied. It was basically mid to late September or wait until after the election issue is resolved and then decide. So I think what I'd like to do is, since it was split like that, late state, late to see, let's get ready to execute it. But let's let the dust settle. Let's, you know, take another straw. Let's take another vote of the committee. There's one or two people not here, and make a decision after the election, or after this August 30th or whatever. But I don't know if you
Yeah,
have
I
any
guess-
perspective of how long, you know, I know that I'm actually not that close to it.
Yeah, and there's no telling how long it would be. The question that I have is, what difference does it make? How is it going to impact the survey results to put it out now as opposed to waiting?
Yeah.
I mean, does who sits on the board make
It
a
doesn't.
difference?
It's more, it was, I think what I heard from members or committee members was just the degree of positivity or negativity,
Yep.
you know, was the biggest concern. And there might be a decision made after the 30th, which might be neutral, positive, or negative. And maybe that decision won't be made until November.
Well, I think we can pretty much assume that whatever the decision is, there will be people who are happy with it,
Yeah.
and there are going to be people who are very unhappy with it. So I think hinging this on the happiness factor
Yeah.
or the discontent factor, you could find yourself never putting this
Right.
out because.
Yeah, that, you know, it's, as I said in my response, you know, the obvious answer is delayed till after the election issue is resolved, but the election issue might not be resolved until next year. I mean, you know, when you know, the judge in our county is likely to give a, you know, a quick decision because.
Oops.
You broke up there for a second, Wes.
I think we
Wes, you're
lost.
on mute.
I don't know what happened there. My screen changed. The judge, the local judge is likely to try to set the case in quickly and get a decision quickly, but the Court of Appeals is not. They don't care. And so, you know, the final resolution of this thing is, you know, could be far out. So, you know, probably we should just go forward. You know, the fear that everybody has expressed here is that right now, you know, this thing looks like a big, you know, I don't even get the right word. And
not a good
I think it shades, you know, what I worry about is it shades people's attitudes to the point where the survey doesn't reflect. That's the worry about people being happy or unhappy. It's not that some are going to be happy, some are going to be unhappy. But when you see something like this that looks like to the general public such a huge screw up, that it forms, you know, in their mind, you know, a mindset that will give you false results, you know, from the survey. That's my concern. But there's nothing you can do about that part because it is what it is. So, you know, maybe we just go forward like we thought we were going to go forward in September and you know, send it out, get the results, and understand that there may be a lot more negativity on some things than we would have had, but for this problem with the election.
Yeah, I'm gonna open it up for discussion. If you remember, I admitted to some of you that I tend to be optimistic and too positive. And I think it's what I learned in my career is always good to listen to all the different points of view. And that's what I'm trying to do here. If it's up to me, I'd send it out. But on the other hand, we're not ready to send it out.
Right.
So my compromise was, let's get it ready to send out and take another straw poll of this committee right after the 30th, when it's ready, and the communication plan is ready, and get more of an official vote. That's where my head was.
Well, yeah,
so,
you also have a couple of steps with the board,
Yeah,
right? And one is, the board needs to know what your distribution plan is, which we don't know. And the board needs to know the costs and approve the costs of the distribution plan. We are having a meeting September 15th, and we could vote on those two issues if you're ready for us to vote on them, and for them to be presented to us to
Yeah.
vote.
What's the date?
The 15th of September. And, you know, we are operating business as usual as a board. Normally we would have set the agenda, the calendar of meetings after the election. The election is not finished, so we are going month to month at this point with our meetings.
Yeah.
And you know, we're going to continue to conduct the business of the association.
So I didn't want to stifle any discussion, but that's because it was a 4-4 vote, because we're not ready. Maybe something disastrous will happen and it's like we say, no, don't send it out. Or maybe it's like, hey, it's the same feeling now. Maybe we get one vote to switch and we decide to send it out or something like that. But we're not ready to send it out anyway. So
Right.
that's why I said, let's get ready to send it out and then take another straw poll.
Yeah, and the trigger will be pulled by the board.
Yeah. Discussion. Anybody?
I still have a question about the light and bold issue when the survey came up. When I did it on my regular computer, I didn't do it on a laptop or my phone. I actually thought it worked really well because the question that I was looking at was highlighted.
Yeah.
And the one above and below it were very light.
Yeah.
Right.
So that I didn't pay attention to those. I focused on the one. So I thought it worked really well, but I didn't see the issue that apparently some other
Yeah,
people
there was
saw.
3 or 4 people on their phone that thought the font was too light.
Thought it was like.
And I would just argue that everybody needs to look at this again because my eyes, I'm looking at this slide now and half of it looks bold and half of it doesn't, just the condition I have. So I can't tell that, but I think you can change the color of the font and make it a little bit, I mean, I forget if it was blue or black, but I think you could still have that solution that you like.
Right.
But
Can
make
folks
it,
hear me? I lost the sound.
I can hear you. We can hear you. So I'm glad you brought that up because that is a plus, but hopefully we won't lose that if we change the font color or font boldness, so. Jenny, are you still there?
Yep.
So that's what we're gonna do. Is that okay? Unless, you know, it's like a compromise because it was a 4-4 vote because we're not ready. You know, let's go with that and get board approval and still get it done possibly in September.
Yeah, and our next meeting will be mid-October. Usually our meetings are the Wednesday or Saturday after the financials are required to be out, which is the 15th of the month.
Yeah.
I think it's unfortunate that we had to wait so long, but because my feeling is I think a lot of people, once school starts, okay, they're not here for the rest of the fall and winter.
Yes, I know.
And then, you know, how do you communicate with them? Because in most cases, they may not even go online to look at anything related to here.
Their social media will still be, if they're engaged that way.
Right, if they are engaged. Or then again, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, you know, the Communications Advisory Committee did what I consider to be a very creditable job of promoting the election and the annual meeting. And I think we could also consider enlisting their advice and services to help generate interest in this. I don't know, Jenny, you're on that committee. What do you think?
Oh, I think we'd be happy to help. You know, it's not a big deal to do the things that were done. It's not particularly time consuming or expensive. It was more just people getting out there. I mean, making some corrugated signs and putting them around the community is not a big deal, but doing a little video that Josh can promote is also, you know, an idea. I think
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, Josh's committee or Josh's department did a lot beyond what you guys did. I mean, you
Yeah,
guys,
for sure.
you know,
For
so
sure.
this, I think, you know, we've got the resources
Yep.
here to generate interest.
Yeah. So, next slide, please, Josh. So we had put this together and it was sent out and we recapped it, which is basically our communication. I'd call it our distribution plan that the subcommittee sort of came up with. And we're going to go through this just really quick and hopefully get to mission and vision and next steps. But Josh, so just let's go through it really quickly, just so people are up to speed. We wanted to get 1,000 completed surveys. So last survey was 1,700 or so done, all hard copy. We looked at numbers from my market research class and our goal was at least 1,000 and ideally a split of 500 part-time and 500 full-time. We talked in that subcommittee about what about underrepresented people from the last survey, which was younger people, and we want to make a strong representation of both. We talked about at least 100 to 200. Last time it was something like less than 40 people were under a certain age. So it was the younger population was not represented. Next slide. So these aren't, I guess they're open to discussion, but these decisions have been made. We talked about doing all this, Josh, and you know, I gave you a heads up yesterday. We're gonna get together, you and I, and start going through all this stuff. So PR release, you know, link on the website. Basically just adding the SurveyMonkey link like you guys had, add the link in the weekly eBast with a note, follow up with local papers, include in the annual meeting, which is not relevant because the meeting's passed, include message on the communication boards, reach out to committee chairs, possibly contact the club contacts. I know within my separate community, Wes, you'll probably get an email from me on the Turns Landing newsletter to try to promote it. And there might be some other possibilities of signage and things like that, but these were basically no cost for Ocean Pines to do any of these things, other than Josh's time getting forward. The next slide, Josh, is we talked about reminder cards. And we decided where we would put those. Now, polls is a question mark. They'll probably be closed by the time, you know, we're ready to field this survey. But the yacht club, the golf course, the library, the admin building, and the community center were the locations that we thought we'd put reminder cards. Josh, do you have any experience with, I know we talked about what to put on it. We talked about the concern about, you know, your vote counts and what's going on with the survey, but QR codes. Have you had any experience with printing a QR code on anything and having it work?
I don't, but it seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, the SurveyMonkey creates the QR code really easily as long as we could print that. So we talked about, you know, leading them to the Ocean Pine site, but you could potentially do a QR reminder code, take the survey. So if you're at the yacht club and you want to have your phone there and boom, you load it and you can take it there. So remind me, but ideally we'd love to include a QR code on it, maybe on the back or something like that to do that. We need to detail the quantity, the distribution and the communication plan. In other words, who's going to do all this? How are we going to do it? Do we tap into the communication committee? What's the cost of printing all these to, you know, which I don't think we looked at the cost that you've done before. And I think that's minimal. We also want to print hard copies of the survey, and we said we want to make them available at the admin, the park, and the CPI building, so 3 locations. And again, we need to work on the detailed communication plan and deadline to complete. Once you start putting a hard copy out there, ideally you want to put a deadline on that somebody has to respond, which isn't currently on the survey. And then we talked about, you know, we didn't talk about this, but who's going to collect it, who's going to do that. So these are things, Josh, that I was going to work with you on and then regroup that communications committee to look at this and get all this done before the next board meeting.
Following up on Mo's comment about the fact that people are going to be going
I know.
home, what about the part-timers? You know,
I couldn't hear.
the part-timers, some of them are engaged through electronic communications. I've got to believe that there are many who are not.
I know.
And we don't want to forget the importance of getting their input as well.
Right.
I don't know.
Josh, go to the next slide. And I mean, I wanted to just make sure people knew what we're gonna do. So we're gonna connect in the next few days, Josh, and hopefully design a card and work out some of those details that were just there, question mark. But I am concerned about that. And I also, should we do an incentive? Should we, and if we did an incentive, we'd have to add people to say, listen, if you want to be included in some type of prize, please include your email address. If not, you don't have to. But that would be the way that we can do that, and SurveyMonkey as a process to randomly pick somebody. But, how do we feel about the responses now that the summer's over and we're going to get it, particularly with part-time folks?
Is there any potential of putting out an announcement shortly that there will be a survey sometime, hopefully in the month of September, and be alert to that fact?
Well, we haven't made that decision yet, but yes, we can do that.
Yeah, and, I think that's a great idea, Mo, and I think maybe offering the option of people requesting a hard copy from the administration building, if that's what they need to be able to complete this.
Yeah, I mean, that was in there as an option, and
Yeah,
we talked about who's gonna do that, and,
Yeah.
is there resources to do that and things like that. So we thought if we had it covered, but now, knowing that we want to get the part-time people, I don't know how many are gonna respond based on Josh, on the weekly emails and newsletters and e-letters that go out.
Well, even
Yeah, but-
on the boards of the entrances,
Yeah,
Ocean Pines. I mean, just to alert them to the fact, it's almost like, a wedding invitation, save the date.
The date.
yeah, I think that's a
As a
great idea.
as a seasonal resident, I really utilize the Ocean Pines newsletter as my source of information rather than the Facebook page. And if there is a possible link on the Ocean Pines newsletter to the survey,
That's a great point, and
that
that the
would be
next issue
helpful.
would go out around October 1st, and that's mailed to everybody.
yeah.
So
and I
anybody
think,
with an Ocean Pines address or homeowner.
that was very helpful, and you could actually even take the idea of the save the date, depending on when this rolls out. You could also utilize that for that as well.
The
The website is another place that you could do it. You could put a link on the website as well.
And that weekly thing that comes out this week in Ocean Pines, I think, probably these days, a lot more people get that than we might otherwise think. So that would be another place to definitely promote, the survey, because I read that every week. And I know a number of people in my neighborhood, that I've talked to indicate they get, a lot of their information about what's happening in the Pines from that weekly blurb. I find it very useful and very interesting.
And
Gary,
maybe,
yeah.
Quick question. If the survey were ready by October, when Josh sends out the next newsletter, can you put a QR in the newsletter?
Yeah.
So people can download and take it right then?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how many pages would this be if it were a hard copy?
It's five pages, 2 sides about.
Okay.
Survey.
So also, Bernie, how did you come up with that 1,000 people target?
I'm glad you should ask that, because, Josh, I don't know if you want to go, I mean, it's plus or minus 2.5%.
Okay,
If you go to 2,000, it's plus or minus, it's like a 0.5, 0.7% difference. And
okay. I just wanted to give you some information. I just texted Steve Habecker, the chair of the elections committee.
Yeah.
And he told me that approximately 40% of eligible voters vote. They get 2,800 to 3,000 of the members voting. So that 1,000 might be a conservative goal.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at
How
the
many
previous
people
election numbers too,
Yeah.
because to your point about positivity, negativity, 25 to 35% of the people vote. Like, I looked at past elections and referendums, and I just, because I was trying to make in my mind, it's like, well, are these the same people that will take the survey? Well, probably, but you know, it's a subset of it. So your point, yeah, the 1,000 was based on plus or minus 3%.
Yeah.
Accuracy.
Okay.
And if you go to 2,000, it drops to plus or minus 2.1, 2.2. It's not a significant difference. So it should be pretty good. Where are we? The issue with putting it in October, we might be done by then. If we field it in September and get good response, by October 1st, we might have 1,000 responses. Who cares what, not who cares, but how long do we want to wait till we get all these responses?
Well, the other part is the board can't vote on whatever our plan is in terms of expense and getting the information out until September 15th.
Right, so we're going to be close to October
We're
anyway.
going to be close to October. I mean,
Good point.
I'm just wondering why the board, if we sent it out now, not that it's ready, but if we sent that to the board, why can't the board vote online?
We can vote online if we have unanimous agreement to do so.
Jesus.
That's what our governing documents say.
Let's go back to the part-timers in making sure we get enough part-timers to complete this. I tend to be optimistic. Yeah.
If you add the phone number, if you place the link on the website and in the newsletter and the QR code in addition, if you want to do that, but if you added a phone number for someone to call to request the hard copy, for example, the administration building, that would assist those individuals who aren't connected and who otherwise might not be able to access online.
Well,
And they could have a hard copy sent.
I mean, that's good, but why not just have an email address?
If they don't, I agree with you, that's a good question. They could have it emailed to them or sent to them.
You know, what I'm
But
saying is,
if they're not connected, they're not going to be able to send an email. Like for example, my dad would not be able to send an email to the administration building requesting the survey. He would have to use the phone and call and say, could you please send me a survey?
okay, so what about if we do both?
I think both is great.
Yeah.
So we have to have Josh come up with an email address or something. I hate to put somebody's name out there.
Yeah. And I'll use Becky's phone number. Just kidding, Becky. All good ideas. And I think thinking this is October, thinking that we still have time to say, save the date once we make that decision and once we get everything finalized. We include it in the newsletter, okay? We have to come up with this plan of email and phone number, and I'm sensitive to that to do. What drives me nuts is when I go on a website for customer service and there's no phone number at all, which SurveyMonkey is.
Drives me nuts though, yeah.
But anyway, so I think they're all good ideas that will help and add confidence to me that we will get those part-timers.
But you get a phone number and somebody in India.
Yeah. Any other comments on that? I'm just sensitive to time. How much time do we have left? 15 minutes. Okay, mission.
Oops.
Oh, did I miss something here? So survey timing. Okay, we did that. Next steps. Yeah, so is anybody else, it's not an exclusive group, this communications team, but I thought Josh and I would hammer out some of these details, adding some of the things that we just did, and then reconvene that sub-team for additional input. But if anybody else wants to be involved, let me know. I mean, I think it's Jenny, myself, Wes, or Rob. There's a few people, but yeah, and Helen. So anyway, I didn't want to exclude anybody. So here's, so go to the mission statement. We'll spend a few minutes on this. And my first point is it's something that we're not going to rush to get this done. And the survey should help come up with a mission statement. And I think what I'll do is I'll go through 3 or 4 slides to just get you thinking about it. And we'll have some discussion, but we'll delay it. So this is what we're able to find. And it's not something that every community has. And it took me a while with Josh's help to finally find it. So, you know, we're just going to look at this and think about, you know, maybe the survey a little bit. So Ocean Pines' vision will be a premier resort community offering exceptional value and quality of life to property owners who are diverse in age, economic status, and interest. That's the vision. The mission is provide the governance, administration, facilities, services, and amenities that are necessary to make Ocean Pines an attractive, affordable, safe, and enjoyable place to work. Not bad. You know, it's a good start. Go to the next slide, please. Like I said, I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. From the course that I'm teaching this semester, marketing on Cotter and Armstrong, a mission statement should be something of organization's purpose, what it wants to accomplish. It's a guide, an invisible hand that guides the organization. Ideally, you want to make it market oriented, you know, so satisfying the homeowner needs. Emphasize the company's strengths, so Ocean Pine strengths, and focuses on the homeowner's experience. So let's go through the next slide. And I found that, so again, look at look at what a mission statement should do, and then you sort of read what our current mission is. So it sort of satisfies that, but now let's go to the next slide, which is a checklist for what a mission statement should be. It should be meaningful, it should be specific, and it should be motivating. So now let's look at it again. Go ahead, click it again, please. Motivating. So I think, you know, so aspirational or a little bit of motivating, we could probably do some work on that. I think it's meaningful, it's specific, but you could probably do something in the way of motivational, aspects of it. So next slide, please. And I'll send these out. This was just, examples of different, like Ritz-Carlton hotels, a product oriented, which I would argue that Ocean Pines is sort of product oriented now, is we rent rooms as opposed to recreate the Ritz-Carlton experience, a memorable, you start to get some adjectives in there, some motivational language. What's Walmart? They offer the best prices, but what they want to do is deliver low prices every day, give ordinary folks the chance to buy the same things as rich people, save money, live better. So, it starts to get into taglines. So there's probably a little bit of wordsmithing we could do to it to make it more aspirational, more motivational. I think it's, any comments on the mission statement? And again, it's something I think we shouldn't do until after the survey is complete. I think it'll help to inform us. And we'll handle that separately. I don't think it's the most, in my building of strategic plans at companies, it wasn't necessarily the most important thing. It was more of what are the priorities and things like that. And I think our mission and vision are pretty good. We might just wordsmith them a little bit. This is the last slide. Josh, if you want to build it out, please. And actually, here's what we're going to do. So here's our next steps. Update the survey based on the testing feedback. So all this stuff came in. Actually, I lost the ability to do PowerPoint until yesterday afternoon. So I'm going to get that done definitely by the 1st and send it out for another test and final feedback. So to all of you again by the 8th. We have to develop the details around the communication and execution of the survey. So Josh and I by the 3rd. Based on the board meeting on the 15th, we'll probably move the next meeting up a couple days that communication meeting and just finalize that communication execution plan with costs. So the board can review that and approve that. And then, there's a lot of work to be done yet. So even if we didn't field the survey, we have to go back and summarize some of the work that was done. I mean, Mo did a nice job, excuse me, summarizing the benchmarking we did. And I was gonna show you a couple examples how this might play out. I think there's a little bit more work to be done, but there's a lot of summarization that will have to be done. Now, the homeowner survey will be the primary driver of the plan because it's what our homeowners want. But I just wanted to sort of start the meeting with what we've done in July or in August, and then, what's coming up in September to give you a heads up. And next slide, Josh. Next meeting is the 23rd. Now, we didn't take notes last time. I will put out some action items and a brief summary of the meeting, but we got away from our formality of what we've done in the past, which I think is okay. Any comments or questions or discussions in the 7 minutes that we have?
So anything that you need the board to vote on, I should get in ready form 3 days prior to the meeting because I need to share it with the rest of the board. That would be a drop dead deadline.
Okay.
So I need to share it with the rest of them so that they can be able to consider it before the meeting.
Let me just make a note. So we need to move that communication meeting up to.
I'm willing to help on that. I'm going away on the 13th, so
Okay.
I won't be here for the next meeting.
And I may be going away on the 13th also. So I can participate virtually. But
Okay.
I won't be here for the next meeting either.
Where are you going?
I'm going back to Baltimore to see the doctor.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were Jenny. I was just kidding. It's funny with that, my doctors are either at Johns Hopkins or up at the University of Pennsylvania, so it's just, I haven't switched them. So again, really good meeting, I thought. A lot of good discussion. Had everybody here, the usuals, except for Rob that had a hard conflict. So I really enjoy that we're not just reviewing a survey during this meeting, that we're using time outside of the meeting to do things like that. And I do appreciate your responsiveness on that. But I think in general, we're in pretty good shape with the survey. We spent a lot of time reviewing a couple topics there, but it's important to do that. The only thing I would say is that the next time you look at the survey, again, we're not going to add, if anything we want to take out. Because right now, average was 13.5 minutes, but hard copy might take a little bit longer, but we want to keep it simple. Somebody say something. Josh, give me a word of the day or something.
It took me 5 minutes to do the hard copy, so
Okay.
maybe it's shorter than clicking.
I'll throw something out that I mentioned in an email. For folks who own multiple properties and have different objectives with more than one property, some way to take that into consideration. I own 2 properties. I have different objectives. One I live in, one I rent year round.
Yeah.
I don't care about activities in some capacity. Do you see what I'm saying? So I took it as in my home. I don't know how many people are in that sort of situation, but it is feedback that is going to be totally different.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you're probably a minority, but you're still part of the community. And
Right. So
one
maybe
other
what
thing-
I'll do is I'll request a paper copy and do one online.
Yeah. I think there is, when you sent that in, I was like, I'm not sure how to fix that. I think it's
Me
by
either.
devices. Because once I took the survey, I tested it before I sent it out to you and it wouldn't let me take it again. I'm like,
Right.
darn it. Well, what I did was I made a copy of the survey and I took it again.
Well, I tried to send it to my husband to do.
Yeah.
Could not.
Yeah. He could not take it or he couldn't
It
send
said
it.
survey's been completed.
Yeah.
So I sent
Yeah.
it. I sent it, and I also copied the link, a text message, I tried several ways,
Yeah.
so.
None of those
I
are,
think it's by IP address.
The survey's
Yeah.
already been completed.
I think it's by IP address.
because I
so-
sent it to 2 friends. And I don't remember how I did that,
Isn't that
but they were
funny?
able to complete it.
I think it's like
forward-
Josh said, it's by IP address. I'm not
Oh,
100%
maybe
sure,
that's
so if
it.
you have the same IP address,
Right.
Yeah.
you can't
So,
take it
Tom,
twice.
were you using the same device?
His iPad, my iPad.
But if they have,
Would
one-
they have-
We're getting on the same, like you said.
But you're in the same Wi-Fi in house.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the same IP
Right.
address.
yeah,
A good test would be go to Starbucks and try to take it with the same iPad on a different Wi-Fi.
yeah. Yeah, so Jenny, we're gonna send you to Starbucks to take it the second time. okay?
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I could just do it with, I could
Free
just do
coffee.
it on my phone with my Wi-Fi turned off
Yes, yeah,
and at my house.
yeah.
Oh, that's a
So-
good idea.
So I'm curious, I've also got 2 properties, one I live in and one I rent out full-time. I just kind of assumed that I'd take one survey and my answers would kind of be the same for both properties. I'm not sure I see why
Well,
I
I
would
was
be
thinking
saying things
more in
different.
terms in the physical ways, like, yes, the amenities are important. Yes, the location is important. I mean, I've never had a tenant that uses anything or cares about any of it.
We don't care what the tenant says.
Yeah, the,
They
guess
rent
there's
here
truth to that.
because, you don't think they rent your property because of access to amenities?
Absolutely not.
Huh, interesting.
And
The,
it's been
um,
rented for 16 years. I had one tenant that would occasionally just, pay per use kind of thing. But no, in all these years, none of them have ever used the amenities. Now, safety they care about.
Interesting.
Safety they care about.
Yeah. So Gary, we had talked about this before. There's going to be issues. And, I would argue that with hard copies, there are even more issues, and not be able to really track that. But it's not a vote. It's not like making a decision. It's important, but we think it's minimal, the risk of somebody going around to 10 different locations and taking
Right,
surveys and
right.
stuff like that. And to Jenny's point, if we can collect all the homeowners that have 2 properties, to your point,
I
they're
don't think
gonna
it
vote.
matters because I think Gary's
Yeah.
right. In
Yeah.
most cases, you care about the same things, but it is a different perspective.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my sense of the temperature of this group was, let's get ready to go. And let's hopefully get it out late September, include it in the newsletter in October, and that decision will have to be made early September in order to get it in there and printed. So, we're moving in that direction. That was my temperature. We didn't necessarily formally vote on that, but we will in the next couple weeks or so. But, thank you all. Have a great rest of the day. Stay
Good
cool.
luck, everybody.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Wes.
Bye.
Thanks, Jenny.
Take care, everybody. See y'all.